What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast. I'm your host, Drew, also known as Redkacheek. This week is the PROCORE. It's a nice little. It's really weird with the schedule. So obviously, the Tour Championship was a couple weeks ago. NFL started yesterday. After this week for the PROCORE, the DP World Tour's going on and doing some pretty cool events actually. But then we got a 2-week break, and then it's the Ryder Cup. So it's like a weird PROCORE nestled in between 2 weeks on either side. But it is what it is. So DFS golf is back, at least the main tour, and then a DP World Tour has been going on the last 2 weeks as well, which Rory won on Sunday for the Irish Open. So pretty cool there. But today we'll be talking about the PROCORE and kind of hitting on a few of the updates we had in the offseason, which is still ongoing. Technically, they're not all implemented just yet. But we can kind of talk through what's going on with Fantasy Golf Bag during this time frame. So a couple of things really quickly is one, if you are playing NFL DFS, obviously there's plenty of sites for content and tools and stuff like that, depending on like what level. So like obviously with Fantasy Golf Bag, the data is a big part of it. Content, you could go either side. I mean, honestly, it's a lot of it's just relying on the data, giving my takes, and I try to give a few hot takes here and there from time to time. But a lot of the times it just is driven strictly from the tools and the sims and projections, ownership, etc. So it's kind of in your face. You could almost get to the same thing outside of random course correlations, stuff like that. Also to say for like the NFL side, if you really want to dive into the data, we do have a partnership or at least an affiliate deal with Run the Sims. So Brian Hooper, who's done lulls with Pete Overzet. Brian's a very nice guy on Twitter. I don't know how receptive he is to DM, so probably don't want to say you should just DM him anytime, but he's been very receptive to me, and I very appreciative of the feedback he's given me on some of my DFS questions over the last few years. And honestly, the in-game syndicate's a very cool venture for him with him, Utical, Nerdy Tenor, and Josh. It's actually a pretty cool deal for them to get together and push out a little bit of content and talk data and sims and stuff like that. Run the Sims was what they purchased at the beginning of the year, sometime earlier this year. And it's an optimizer. It has prop tools, has new sims. It has portfolio analysis, a lot of really cool stuff. So again, if you're in the NFL and you don't have enough outlay already with contests and other tools, I would encourage you guys to check out runthesims.com. You can use code FGBNFL, and that'll get you 10% off the first month or first year season. I think it's a year that they have. So at least check it out. I think you'd be pretty pleased. And if I don't have an affiliate deal with the in-game syndicate, I also would encourage you guys to check that out if you're interested in learning more about DFS strategies, computer stuff, data stuff, etc. As for Fantasy Golf Bag, let me go ahead and hop into this, and we'll talk about it just a little bit before we talk about the golf course. You will see, I haven't finished updating everything, but we do have the current field gets loaded. So obviously John Rahm is not in the current field. All the live players are loaded. The data is loaded. So like you could go to live Indianapolis, Chicago, live golf Dallas. So I'm going to update some of these leaderboards to have some more data. Same with the PGA Tour stuff. We have a tie for first, so we got to go in and check with the live golf Dallas why there's a four-way tie. I assume it was a playoff for first place. But now you can go to any of these guys, and that's the goal of this transition, especially for 2026, is to dive into players like Bryson or Terrell Hatton going into the U.S. Open or the Masters. So now we could go pull up their player profile. And even for the live events, like we can load the live field, and now you can get all the same data we have for the PGA Tour. You get it for live. So there's spectrum as well as strokes gained. You have the course history if they played the golf course before. Their normal player analytics cards, round by round scoring, spectrum and off the tee and approach spectrum splits, their approach splits. And then at the bottom, there's no radar data for now. And then at the bottom, they would have their round by round details. So Pretty cool. But each of those things, like, Indianapolis, I think was the last one. Indianapolis. So you could go to the last one that they played in and go check out how they did from a DFS perspective with the DK points, strokes gain. We have spectrum data for live, the traditional stats. And like I said, I'm going to try to clean this up and add a little bit more tools or like data tiles so we can dive into some more live stuff next year, especially the players coming into the PGA Tour, into the PGA Tour ecosystem with some of the majors. So that is on the horizon, and what that means for some of the tools, which I'll just quickly hit on. Like I said, I haven't updated all the tools yet, but what you'll see now is for any tour, well, right now it's just PGA Tour and live, but you'll see an event selection box, and now you'll be able to select, the PGA Tour field or a live golf field. You can still do time machine and go back in time to any of those. So like the time machine 2025, you can go back to the Arnold Palmer Invitational. You go back to Live Golf Miami. You go see who won, what their lead-in form looked like, all the cool stuff. So, yeah, that's been the biggest update we have so far, is just diving into the live data, the player profiles, transitioning everything to handle the multiple tours around the world. So more to come, but wanted to bring that up really quickly. Most everything else will be following suit, like Approach IQ does not have the multi-tour right now. We're kind of just trying to get through this fall swing. And then when the end of the year, that last break, we should be able to get everything updated perfectly with live. So enough about that. Let's dive into the course preview. And let's talk about Silverado. I did check the scorecard. There's very minor change. I think it's playing at 71.38 this year instead of 71.23. It's still a par 72. The last 5 winners here, and really quick before I even get into that, they are, I didn't count how many exactly from the Ryder Cup are playing here. Obviously, there's quite a few Schefflers in the field. I want to say all of them that are on the PGA Tour are playing. I don't know if that's true, but it's definitely several, if not all of them. So this is definitely a stronger field than we've seen in the past for the first event of the fall FedEx Cup run, whatever they call it nowadays. So the last 5 winners: Patton Kizzire at -20, Sahith at -21, Max Homa -16, Max Homa again and -19, and then Stuart Sink, surprisingly, at -21. Bermuda through and through, Robert Trent Jones Jr. is the architect. As far as the distances, average par 3, 184, pretty average, maybe even short for today's standards. Average par 4, 458, also kind of on the short side, I would say, at least average. Well, maybe average is probably where I should stand there. Average on the par 4 distance, and then 567 for the par 5s, also average, maybe just slightly under average for a PGA Tour course. Honestly, 7,100 yards, par 72 isn't very long. This is the breakout hole by hole. You can see the par 5s are really the big scoreable ones: hole 5, hole 12, and hole 18, and 15 a little bit. Everything else is pretty much around par. Like, there's a few holes, surprisingly, for the winner being 20 under par, that are playing over a tenth of a shot over par. Hole 2 is a par 3. Hole 11 is also a par 3. Those are the 2 tough ones, and they're not even that long. 197 and 189. And then hole 9 plays 0.16 over par. 7, the other par 3, 212, it plays over par. Par 3s are tough, man. And then the rest are pretty much within 0.05 plus or minus relative to par. So nothing crazy. Par 5s obviously is where guys are going to have to keep pace. But there's, even with some of these playing over par, there's plenty of birdies out here. Let's see here. We'll look at the correlations here in just a second. Missed fairway penalty is down quite a bit. Distance penalty is down quite a bit. Very interesting dynamic there, where driving accuracy or driving distance is not really a big factor. a lot of that has to do with the field, to be completely honest. Like the numbers that are leading into this event from some of the scrubs that play this, they have to play this event after the FedEx Cup finishes. It would get a little bit wonky. So as much as I love our lead-in data and the correlations, I will say when you have bad players or at least guys that aren't playing great, they're still good enough. They can kind of piece it together for a week and it's going to get a little bit weird. But if you really want to dial this into being a driving course, it's not. It's really going to be about proximity and hitting it close. So you can see driving accuracy is way down. So there's really no preference on driving accuracy. Driving distance is also down just a little bit, which doesn't make sense, right? Like if driving accuracy is down, that means guys are hitting, missing a lot of fairways. So they're probably trying to bomb it down there. Not really. We'll look at the hole by holes or like the breakout of the driving distances, but that's a very interesting dynamic for sure with the driving accuracy. Correlations. Interestingly enough, bogey avoidance, number one on our list, strokes gained tee to green. Now, the cool thing about bogey avoidance, which has come up the last couple months, there's just so much that's captured in bogey avoidance. It could be good ball striking. It could be good scrambling. It could be like at the very basics, you're a good driver of the golf ball, therefore you're not in a lot of trouble. Therefore, you're able to hit up and around the greens more often. Like bogey avoidance is such a good stat. And it doesn't necessarily mean you don't make birdies. It just means you're avoiding bogeys. And like wouldn't say that's half the battle, but it also leads to opportunities. So if you're not making a lot of bogeys, assuming it's because you're not scrambling your ass off or something like that, bogey avoidance is a really good thing. If you think about it might be a slightly unfair comparison, but like I assume Scotty's probably number one in bogey avoidance, and he's the best player in the world. If you go down the list of the best players in the world, they all avoid bogeys. And you can see here the birdie or better number is way down on our correlation. So even though this is a course where I would say you kind of got to make some birdies to keep pace, it doesn't necessarily equate to what the players are bringing this week. So just something to be cautious of. Bogey avoidance is a fantastic stat. I think people don't use it enough, and I would encourage you guys to use it every week, if not a good chunk, at least something to look at for sure. If you compare this or can pair this together, bogey avoidance with strokes gained tee to green makes a lot of sense. Total strokes gained, that's just the guys that are playing overall the best the last couple months. Greens and regulation. So again, if we're bogey avoidance is good, green regulation is good. They're having opportunities. They're not going to make bogeys when they're hitting a lot of greens. It's basically a golf course that lends itself to guys that have been fairly consistent tee to green. I think that's the simplest way to put it. Doesn't mean they've been playing lights out the last couple months as far as like scoring or finish position. It does mean that they've been playing pretty well tee to green, not getting into trouble, getting it on the green, hitting it in play somewhere, getting on the green, not necessarily making a lot of birdies or a lot of putts, but they're hanging around. They're just kind of keep plotting along. Fairway green par, fairway green bogey, or fairway green birdie, not bogey. Fairway green par, fairway green birdie, par 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 birdie. There's a lot of pars, so it's a pretty easy profile, I think, if you look through our correlations. Here is the breakouts. I don't think I want to look at this too much. You can see tee to green is really high. That's pretty interesting. So tee to green for our lead-in correlations was number 2. Tee to green for the actual in-tournament correlations or stats, whatever you want to call it, is number 1. It's a pretty cool. You see that every now and then, but not to this degree. That the actual correlation between lead-in form and the actual event is really, really, really high. Off the tee again is not a big factor here. Again, driving accuracy is down. Driving distance overall is down. You will see a big chunk of tee shots right at 300, but that's not really bombing. That's just standard drivers getting it out there. Nothing crazy. And then putting is a big factor in terms of guys making the cut or finishing the top 10 or the top 25 even. All right, let's see on the driving buckets. We have 2 from 250 to 270. We have 4 from 270 to 290, and they're all right at 280. So it's obviously less than driver. 290 to 310, there are 7 tee shots, and 310 to 330, there is 1 tee shot, which is on the low side. It's only 314, and that is hole number 1, interestingly enough. So plenty of drivers, not a lot of bombs. And if you look at the distance penalty, there's no real advantage to bombing it on this golf course, anyways. So there's no disadvantage to missing fairways. There's no real disadvantage, big disadvantage to hitting it shorter than the field average. Obviously, I don't want that, but the data does say there's not a big distance measure to be gained on this golf course. And there's also not a big accuracy measure to be gained or lost on this golf course. Approach distance distribution, pretty much in line with the PGA Tour. The biggest difference is on the low end and the top end. So 50 to 125 is almost double the PGA Tour average. So just a lot more wedges, a lot more wedges than a PGA Tour course, and not quite half, but almost half the 200 plus approach shots than a PGA Tour course. So everything else is basically Tour average. I'll just be a little bit lenient there, and 125 to 150, 150 to 175, 175 to 200 is all pretty much in play as far as a Tour average golf course. But I will say 50 to 125 is hugely emphasized around Silverado Resort. And we would use that in Approach IQ to kind of weight our players. I mean, we saw that even going into, was it the Wyndham Championship, where guys are going to have a few more wedges. And if you looked at like the last 2 months of data, I mean, guys are hitting like 10% of their approach shots from 50 to 125, and everything was 200 to 225 or 225 to 250. And like, if I used their approach number as a whole, it's not going to be as reflective of what they're going to have to see that week. And that seems like the case this week. 50 to 125 is huge. 200 plus is relatively, non-existent as far as importance this week. So I would just pay a little bit more attention to the wedges. I would pay much less attention to the long irons. The par threes are already tough. I mean, it's not like something like, they're not so tough where that's an edge, and they're not so easy where, like, man, if you're not good with your long irons on those holes, you're losing birdies. So I would really just focus on the wedges, short irons, mid irons, and that is it. Here is the past winners and lead-in stats. You can see this is kind of all over the place. So this is the last 10 winners, the average winner profile, obviously minus 18, average odds 88 to 1, average DraftKings salary 8,600. Besides tee to green and off the tee, all the other stats and green regulation, I guess, is negative. So like on average, the winner of this golf tournament has come in with positive off the tee and positive tee to green, losing strokes on approach, losing strokes around the green, losing strokes putting, worse than average proximity, worse birdie or better, worse bogey or worse. So an interesting dynamic there. A lot of that goes to a couple players. I'd say they all have their faults. If you look through the winners here, like there's been a few good ones, like Emiliano Grillo, who's a great ball striker anyways. Let's see. Sahith was playing pretty well. Approach wasn't great. Same with Max Homa. So just be a little bit more lenient. We also don't have as much data leading into this event, especially for the people actually playing this event. If we had the guys from the last 2 events of the FedEx Cup playing this week, then yeah, I mean, that's still 2 weeks away. 2 weeks ago, we probably have 2 months of decently good data. Most of the people playing here are either coming from the Korn Ferry Tour, they're getting an exemption, or they have been awful in the PGA Tour and they got to really scrape together some points to keep some kind of status for next year. So it's just a weird week. Like I said, the bogey avoidance, I think, is just tee to green. Bogey avoidance is probably the easiest, safest way. I kind of like these kind of weeks because it really kind of narrows your focus, where I can be a little bit more lenient for guys that I want to play, but also kind of fit everybody into a vacuum that they have to fit a few key criteria. and then move on with my week. I don't have to get too crazy with a bunch of different stats. But I will say be a little bit more lenient for guys as you go down. They don't have to be checking every single box. Just yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's a fall swing event. We see that in some of those weaker field events surrounding the signature event. So this is the field history. Like I said, we have some good players playing: Scheffler, Thomas, Henley, Sam Burns, Cantley, Ben Griffin, Cameron Young, ironically all the top. And some of them have played, but not honestly very many. JT's played the most, has had pretty good results. I don't see how you count out Scotty. 14-4 is a little bit rich in a full field, or mostly a full field. And then these other guys are relatively expensive in the 9Ks for a golf course that I would deem somewhat volatile. If you look through the guys of, miscut with a good finish, miscut, they're bookends. So be a little bit cautious with the course history here. Plenty of miscuts. So, I mean, outside of a few guys that play here every year, or because they have to, probably because they suck, I wouldn't pay too much attention to this. I mean, Patton Kazire won last year. His lead-in was miscut, T28, miscut, T56. Then he won. And he wasn't even playing that great if you look at his lead-in form. Like, tee to green was pretty good. Off the tee, about flat. He actually wasn't playing awful. Putting was losing. Proximity, not great. Birdie or better, not great. Bogey or worse. Look at that, though. Bogey or worse, green pretty much back until Cameron Champ. Bogey or worse. Bogey avoidance. We call it bogey or worse internally. Bogey avoidance is what everyone knows it as. I think that's pretty much it. You can go through the historical results and look through here. You can see like driving distance, even on the long side. Last year, Minwoo Lee at 320, Neil Shipley surprisingly at 317. Like there's not huge number. Joseph Bramlett's one of the longest guys on the tour. His average drive last year was 313. It's just not a big deal. Driving accuracy, the high end was 68%. I mean, the top 10 is around 60%. Like they're not hitting more than half the fairways, really. So driving accuracy is pretty much out the window. Driving distance, I don't want the short guys, but you don't have to focus on bombers here. All righty, let's see really quickly if we can get the stat model to load. That loaded pretty quick. That's good. Let's see if the time machine will load for the 2024 PROCORE. See how fast it goes. Pretty good. A couple WDs in there. I got to take those out. Patton Kazire, you can see I got to link up the DK price from the old data, but overall pretty good. Let's make a new model here. This is going to be the 2025 PROCORE. We can save that if you guys are new or missed this update right before the end of the FedEx Cup run, FedEx Cup playoffs. You can save your models now. You can access them. You can make a new one, duplicate, whatever you want to do, so you don't lose your work on any given day. So we're on the 2024 PROCORE Championship. This was last year. I can do a couple things. First, I definitely want to change my stats. Let's just do tee to green off the tee approach. That's fine. Scoring and performance. I like the IQ stat. Birdie or better, I'm going to take out. Bogey avoidance, I'm going to add. And green and regulation, I'm going to add. IQ stat and green and regulation stat, they are not the same thing, but they are very, very highly correlated. It's kind of like an opportunity score. So green and regulation obviously will align fairly closely with the IQ stat. The rest of this, I don't really care about. Maybe I'll do. I don't even care about doing the adjusted strokes gain total today. I think this is good for now. We could do approach or proximity from 50 to 125. And let's see what that looks like. If we run a model, just distribute everything evenly. Let's see what that looks like. all over the place if we do a balanced model. So let's do this. Let's start one at a time. So let's do bogey avoidance 100%. Super simple, 100%. If you did a bogey avoidance last year, obviously this is a wild field. Bogey avoidance straight down. You don't have the winner in this group, but you got Matt Kuchar, Austin Smotherman, T13, T7, Patrick Fishburne third, Corey Connors, T7. You'll catch a WD in there. So T26, T37, not the worst in that type of field. Honestly, you would have done fairly well as far as like a 6 of 6 chance. IQ stat is the other one that I like to do by itself. This one's even better. So we got a T13, a third, 12th, T7, another T7. Pretty good. So then you just start to kind of blend these together and try to see what makes a lot of sense. So like I said, off the tee, not a huge thing, but let's add a little bit of off the tee preference. Green regulations correlated with IQ stat. So we'll add a little bit there. Have to bump these down to allow for it. And then driving distance doesn't matter. I didn't know I had that in there. 50 to 125. I don't know what that's going to do. Let's just bump it up really high and see. Yeah, I don't think it's going to do much. You can also just sort. Some of these guys didn't have any data leading into it, which is also a problem. So we can go back 5 months, 30 rounds. Let's do that. Not bad. Let's take out the proximity. We'll do a little bit of approach. It's not a huge thing, but we'll do a little bit. I do want more of that. I'm going to have to normalize this here in just a second. Okay, let's try that out. So if I were to run this last year, not awful. Number one would have been Luke Clanton. Not so too surprising. So sometimes you got to sanity check this as well. I'm not trying to talk to anybody like they're an idiot. Just sometimes I speak to myself in the same way. Like if I go run this stuff that I think would be good, hopefully, even if they didn't play well, hopefully it's someone good. Same with like Scotty Scheffler every week. Whatever you run on a given week, as of now, if Scotty is not number one, you probably need to do something different. There's no golf course where Scotty should not be number one. Unless it's like 8,000 yards and somehow it's Bryson and Rory and they're 1 and 2 and then Scotty's 3. Like that's the only possible chance where that doesn't play out. But fantastic tangent, Drew. Good job. Glue Clanton, number one, T50. Norman Zhang, 1 round. Probably would have thrown that out. So you just do min rounds of like, you can do whatever you want. Do min rounds of 10. Keith Mitchell was number 3 if you take out Norman Zhang, the Panda. He finished 12th. T32, T26, T7, T13, third. Honestly, pretty good. Like I don't have to catch the winner in this group. We have like the last couple months, and it's been pretty fortunate, but it doesn't have to work that way every time. And honestly, sometimes if you go look at the winner, like Patton Kizzire, like what do I have to bump up or bump out completely? Like bogey avoidance was really good, but it wasn't really good for Patton Kizzire at that point. So if you were to bump that down, maybe he gets a little bit higher. But are you really wanting to do that for one player, or do you want the player pool to be a little bit more well-rounded? So I would lean to the more well-rounded side. But you're more than welcome to tinker with this and see. Like if I take out bogey avoidance, how much further up does what's his name? Patton Kizzire show up. He's 32nd, and what was he before? 21.4. 32nd. Didn't move. Or did I do it wrong? Let's do it this way. Yeah, he stayed the same, actually. Doesn't even matter. All right. Back to it. Couple miscuts in there. WD, CT pan, that would have stunk. Probably be nice, talking out loud here, for the time machine portion. If we have the DK price pulled in, it'd be cool to see the ownership as well. Because I don't recall, we could go look it up, but I don't recall what CT Pan. I don't recall what his ownership was, but for him being 14th with pretty good sample size, I imagine he was reasonably popular. So it would be nice to just go through this and be like, yeah, I mean, Luke Clant was number one, but he was 32% owned, finished 50th. Like, I probably would have ate into that chalk, or maybe like, well, I would have just faded anyways. Just extra data, talking to myself, having fun. But that's it. And then what you do is simply exit the time machine. I'll close these up. Now we're back to the current week. This is everything if we matched up from last year. Again, you could go to 2023, 22, 21, whatever you want to do. As I just said, Scotty should be number one, and he is. So that's a good start. How much percentiles wise? 199. It's actually not too far above Koiven or Henley in this one. Actually pretty high. 1.01. Go back to rank. So it's Scheffler, Koiven, who just played in the Walker Cup at Cypress Point last week. Russell Henley, number 3. Cameron Champ, surprisingly. Cameron Champ, what have you been doing? He has not played since the 3M Open. Interesting. Off the tee's pretty good. Total's not terrible. Made the cut. Yeah, he made the cut in the John D. Wow. Has he made the cut in all those events? He's just not doing great. Maybe this is like the perfect bogey avoidance example. Yeah, so 2025. Since the RBC Canadian Open, June 5th. So what was that? 9-8 right now. So what was that? 3 months ago? T9, T19, T27, T14, T28. So not like great top finishes, but all made cuts. Really pretty good, if I'm going to be completely fair. I'm not a big Cameron Champ guy because he's been on the Korn Ferry Tour most of the year, if not all of the year. So good for him. And he's got a win and a bunch of missed cuts. It's a weird example, but that is good to see. He's actually playing pretty well. Cameron Young, Rico Hoey, JJ Spahn, Ben Coles. I know we talked about a couple months ago. He was starting to pop with his approach. Again, I don't think approach is that huge of a this week overall, at least. And, like I need a full package. Strokes gained approach, he's third in this field. Pretty good. Jesper Svensson, Michael Thorbjornsen, actually pretty strong top 15 or so. So that is what I am playing. If you want to go back through this really quickly, it basically just took everything from our lead-in correlation. So bogey avoidance, strokes gained total, strokes gained tee to green. I did bake in off the tee and approach. You're kind of double counting, so a little bit unfair there, but it is what it is. I can just bump that down, but kind of double counting the strokes gained numbers a bit. Green regulation, I did not do any driving distance, didn't do any of the proximity, didn't care, wasn't correlated anyways. And then the IQ stat I put pretty high. I like the IQ stat quite a bit. So pretty simple. And then I can just save my 2025 ProCore model, come back next year if we win 100,000 and got it all loaded up. And also, I can just take this same thing to any of the past years. So I can go to 23 for the ProCore, go down to the Fortinet, travel back in time, get out of that, go sort by the model. Again, you got, Doug Gim, Max Homa, Cam Davis, on down the list. Pretty good list there too. Again, you're going to have some landmines, but this is actually pretty reasonable. If my player pool, if I pulled top, 50 guys, I would have got the winner. Probably a little more than half made the cut. It's probably not great, but probably a little more than half made the cut. And that means my 6 of 6 probably would have been okay. And then see what the upside is. Go back to another year, 2022. Fortinet was at the beginning of the year in 22. John Rahm, number 1, missed the cut. Mito, 3rd, was number 3. Kyle Stanley, Maverick McNeely, still pretty good. Just a lot of weird ones with the missed cuts and stuff. But we've gone far enough down this rabbit hole. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that podcast for the PROCORE Championship. Like I said, we'll be updating the rest of these throughout the fall swing. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, I understand everybody's kind of tuned into football, the end of the MLB, mostly football, to be honest. And the NBA will be kicking up here in October. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. I do like NBA. It's a tight edge, but it is a fun sweat because there's so much action. Like, so many points are accruing continuously. So it's somewhat linear. But yeah, appreciate everybody tuning in. Like I said, we'll be continuing to push out those updates at fantasygolfbag.com. So if anything runs a little bit slow, you're more than welcome to reach out to me on Twitter or in the Discord and let me know. I'm trying to, be very critical of every single update to make sure it's still running fast enough. But if you do run into any problems, let me know. And happy to take a quick look at it. And then all this should be all settled up. Probably after we come back from the FedEx Cup or the Ryder Cup. So many cups. But I think that's it for now. So appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, I'll be in the Discord all week. We pushed out this data. And if you have any questions, let me know. Best of luck, guys. And good luck tonight in the NFL Millie Maker. And on Sunday, and another Millie Maker, and then the next Sunday. So hopefully somebody wins a Millie Maker this fall. See you guys.